Okay. Welcome to Touchdown Times with Alo and Savvy Sav. We got a preseason week 3 analysis coming up, along with some draft strategy, and we're going to be talking about some of the fantasy football teams that we got going on. So I'm excited for week 3. Stoked that we're almost to regular season here. Eli, what are we going to be talking about today?
Man, so we just got through preseason week 3. We'll go through a couple games that we watched. Didn't watch too many, but we're just so excited for the first season that we're pumped for that. But also we'll probably go over some drafts that we both did in separate leagues, of course. But we can maybe go over the players that we liked, disliked, and our general thoughts on it. Also have an update for you guys on some betting. Just a quick little recap of some stuff I've been doing. Then the answers to our trivia question from last week, as well as probably a new trivia question. And that's probably going to be all. It might be a relatively short podcast, but that's just because we're going to have a lot more coming up for the new season. So, yeah. But to start off, though, I do have a quick question for you, Andrew. You being our fantasy football commissioner, I'd like to know what advice would you have for anyone out there who's a commissioner, and what does it take to be a good commissioner?
Yeah, that's a great question because there's a lot of commissioners out there, right? And um, the person that you want as commissioner, first and foremost, I believe, has to have passion for the game, right? And especially fantasy football, they need to be in it and just have that have that perspective on it where they know points, they know value, they know what's going on in the game, and just overall passionate about fantasy football and the game itself. Second piece to me would be the organization aspect, right? And this is rallying people for dues, rallying people to be engaged with content, or what's going on, rivalry weeks, whatever's going on in the mix, getting people engaged. I think that's another huge factor to it. The last piece, I would say, I don't know. I mean, I think there needs to be an unbiased opinion in it. Me personally, I have somewhat of a council that I go to when I'm making decisions like that, whether it's league change rules or fair trades or whatnot. It's very democratic type of style that I have as a commissioner, where we vote on everything. But I also do have one or two people in the league that I'm like, hey, what do you think about this league change before I propose it to the rest of the group? And I think that's it's important to see everybody's perspectives and really just do your best in the role, and it'll change. It'll change from person to person as the league kind of continues to develop, and that's a given. But I think those things are definitely important when being a commissioner of a fantasy football league. You know what I mean?
Mhm. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Now, man, there's all good
Yeah.
points. I'm also a commissioner in one of my other leagues with my old fraternity buddies, and I'd agree with all those points. I think being just active and making sure everyone's happy within the league. I think a lot of it can
Hmm.
also be the people in your league. You could have some maybe confrontational people or people who don't want to pay or certain things like that, but that's kind of your job to make sure you set it up so that if those guys don't work out, you need to let them go, or you need to make sure you have a solid group of guys there every year, working together to make sure that it's a fun time for everyone. So I'm in the same
Yeah,
boat
and
there. I
that's
understand.
and that's and that's why, like, a lot of these leagues, you're having the same people over. You're trying to build a dynasty, and that's ultimately our goal in our league as well. But I'm in a couple other leagues where I'm not the commissioner, and man, it's a pain seeing other people struggle in the role. You know what I mean? So having a good group of guys is definitely key, in my opinion. And I'm blessed, and I feel like we're blessed to be in a good group where we have a good group of guys that are there and will pay their dues and make the year just all around amazing.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So speaking of that, let's just jump to our fantasy stuff since we're already on the topic. We can talk about preseason after that. But for the drafts that you just had with these other leagues, what what position were you? What were your top picks, favorite picks? Maybe guys you're iffy on. Who were you looking at, and how did your draft days go?
Yeah, so I mean, every draft is different based on competition, right? You either got people that know what they're doing, or the people that maybe are good for the first 3, 4, maybe 5 rounds, right? And they don't really know the depth after that. In this draft, these guys have been doing it about 8 or 9 years. They're pretty competitive with it. It's $100 buy-in, and I got a draft ranking of a B. And I think it's a better draft class than a B. I would rank it a little bit better draft class than a B. And I think the reason why it got a B was because I drafted two people from the same team, and I also drafted some young rookies that I think have a high potential for a ceiling, and they're maybe not ranked the best by this system. You know what I mean? So I'll go through my starters and let you get some feedback on it. But for my quarterback, I got Jalen Hurts. He's a great mobile quarterback. He can run the ball. They have a great offensive line. Austin Eckler is going to be my second pickup as my first running back. I got really lucky with him. The guy that I chose ended up going with Kelsey instead, and I got Eckler. I snagged Eckler, which is great. For my second running back, I got DeAndre Swift. I think that's maybe where I kind of messed up. Having Jalen Hurts and DeAndre Swift, but he was definitely the best running back at that time. Then DK Metcalf is my wide receiver two. My wide receiver one is going to be CeeDee Lamb. He's got him and Dak have a connection. I think he can definitely be a top 5 receiver. Tight end, I got Tyler Higbee and Pat Fryermuth as my backup. And then my flex is a little bit of a weird one. I decided to take the Lions backfield, and I got David Montgomery as well as Jamar Gibbs. I think David Montgomery is going to have a good first few games, and when he blows up and Jamar Gibbs takes over, I think I can still have a little trade value for him. I don't think they're just going to use Jamar Gibbs as a 3-down back. I think he's much more of a passing back, and that's what really excites me about him. He's young. He did 2 years at Georgia Tech before he transferred to Alabama. He shined bright at Alabama, and he's definitely got what it takes to do well. My kicker is Chris Boswell, and my Chargers defense. As far as what's on my bench, I got Dalvin Cook, which is great. Quentin Johnson, invested in some of these rookies. George Pickens, year 2, really about to pop off. And then Cam Sutton, which, I think he was my last pick. But I think I got a pretty good solid group of guys. Like I said, they ranked me at a B. And I drafted, I believe, fifth overall.
Okay. Now, man, I think that's a pretty solid team. Yeah, you are taking a little risk with some rookies, but we were talking about it with our sleeper conversations and kind of where we are looking, and I do think that is an interesting strategy to take Montgomery and Gibbs.
Yeah.
But I do like what you were saying, where you could trade one off. Hopefully, people won't see through that strategy and realize you have both.
Especially if I'm announcing on a podcast, right?
Exactly. So you got to be careful with who you're trying to trade with now.
Yeah, no, definitely. But my whole thought was, there's injuries in the game all the time, especially at running back position, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why they don't want to pay these guys. It's because they're just that position's injury prone. But having command of a backfield is key if an injury does happen, because you have the next person that'll be now a 3-down back, and who knows, man? We'll see what happens. But it was a little bit different of a strategy, but I was willing to take command of the Detroit's backfield. What they have Amon St. Brown for the wide receiver as a real weapon threat, but other than that, I don't see a clear cut alternative. So I think they're going to be dependent on the run for volume this year. We'll see how it plays out, man. We'll see how it plays out. Let's turn it back to you. Which draft do you want to go over? I know you had a semi-competitive league, and then you had a little bit more of a competitive league going into the 2 drafts that you got done. Which one do you want to talk about first?
Just for this week, I'll just go over one so I don't take up too much of your time. But probably go over my more competitive one, the 12-man league I've been doing. This is the one I'm actually commissioner of. So I was ended up being 11th overall. So kind of towards the end. And I had to make a similar strategy of what I mentioned in the last podcast, where I had to go 2 wide receivers back to back.
Question to you
Yeah.
before you get too deep into it. How did you guys determine your draft strategy? Was it random? Did you guys do something cool with it? Or,
I want to do stuff that's more cool. It's just that since
getting
everyone
12
doesn't
people together.
exactly, no one lives around here anymore, or at least we're pretty spread out. So I'd love to do some type of relay challenge, or even just something dumb, maybe just something easy that's still, a lot of chance to it. But overall, I always just do names in a hat.
Yep.
Well, I'll do names in a hat and personally do it, and I'll make sure I have a witness or I record it.
Nice.
It's usually the way I go for it, and everyone
Yeah.
so far, no one's complained, so it's
Yeah,
worked
no,
out.
that's a great way to do it. I mean, I think we did that last year for our draft. So I mean, that's a great way to do it. I've definitely seen some other fun ways to do it as well. Whether it's doing some relays or just doing the 40-yard dash or whatever it is. Those are the type of things that I say get people involved, get people amped and ready for the season, and just engaging. But back to the draft. Back to the draft. Where were you about to say?
Yeah, so I ended up going the two wide receiver route. So not a true zero RB, which if you don't know what a zero RB is, it's basically where you don't draft a running back for a while. You kind of rank down and hope you get some good sleepers later on, or some guys who can do some production, but you're mainly focusing on just beefing up your quarterback, your wide receivers, even your tight end. But I didn't do a full zero RB. I basically had to go back to back at 11. I got Stephon Diggs and CD Lamb. I just thought those two probably gonna have good
Solid
solid
RB
years. I
one
mean,
or wide receiver ones.
the
Yeah.
consistency for me is there. We're not gonna have Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase stats probably, but I think both of those, consistency is key for me there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I'd agree.
so then I ended up going back to back running backs after that, just by kind of following the board. I ended up taking Ramondre Stevenson and Najee Harris.
Mm.
As a Steelers fan, what do you think of Najee? Do you think he's got it this year? Because I thought he'd have a comeback year. I think their offense is going to be much more smooth this year with the second year under Pickett. I think they could maybe have something better there, but I don't know. What do you think of Najee?
Yeah, yeah. I think Najee I think their backfield is turning into a 1-2 punch slowly but surely. And Najee's more of that muscle. He still has elusiveness to him, but he's more of that muscle. I'm gonna pick up, 4 or 5 yards and I'm gonna stiff arm you or put my shoulder down and kind of run you over. Jalen Warren is interesting because he's starting to take more snap shares away from Najee, and he's got the explosiveness, man. I mean, he had a 65-yard touchdown run last week, and he's got the explosiveness. I think they're going to get him involved more than you think. But I also think that Najee is going to get the goal line touches. He's going to get the touchdowns. He's going to be the red zone target for the Steelers. They just have a lot of young weapons. You know what I mean? With George Pickens, Deontay Johnson still there, and Pat Fryermuth, and they just have a young team, and I'm not quite sure where the ball is going to really end up. I think George Pickens going to be a high target, and I think Najee is going to be a high target depending on how much snap share he gets with Jalen Warren. But I know they're going to want to get him more involved.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my take on it.
That makes sense. He might be a low end RB2 for me, but hey, if I had to take that risk with my two wide
He
receivers,
has
so
potential to be that if he's hitting those goal line, touchdowns. If he's hitting those goal line touchdowns pretty consistently, he's got potential to be an RB1. You know what I mean?
yeah, I think after last year he can only go up, right? Like that last year was a pretty poor performance, so I'm hoping he can pick up this year.
Yeah.
So those are my two wide receivers, two running backs. I ended up going with TJ Hawkinson after that. He was the third best tight end on the board. He kind of just fell to me at the fifth round, so I still do love him out in Minnesota. I think he's going to be a solid option behind Justin Jefferson. He did play very well last year as well, so
Mm-hmm.
I have some trust in him. I think tight ends is always tough. I
It
think right
is.
after him, George Kittle and Darren Waller went out, and I was looking at those guys, but for me, TJ Hawkinson is a much
No,
higher tier above.
that's
Yeah,
the tier. Yeah, that is the tier. It goes, it goes Travis Kelce first and foremost, Mark Andrews, then TJ Hawkinson. And it's kind of from there it drops, right? Then you get into George Kittle and some of those other, receiving tight ends, but it's kind of iffy. But I think TJ Hawkinson was a good, like, you got top fives in every position so far in my eyes, except for maybe running back is it?
yeah,
But I mean, still the volume that you're going to get at those running back positions is key, right?
yeah. Exactly. So that's what I'm hoping for. I'll end it off with my flex at the sixth round. I ended up picking up Drake London. Um, Kind of saw my options around there and felt like his rookie season last year was pretty incredible. Desmond Ritter is going to be maybe the factor there. I don't know how it's going to turn out with them,
Yeah.
but I still think he's going to be one of the top targets there. And yeah, I mean that's just kind of my hope. I think as a flex, that's the best option I had at the time. So I think that might
Yeah.
be where I could work.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, me personally, I try to stay away from Drake London purely on the fact that Desmond Ritter was going to be his quarterback. He's been in the league, but he hasn't had that much experience. But and then on top of that, Bijan Robinson is going to be commanding that backfield, right?
Yeah.
But they can't just go to Bijan the whole time. And obviously, they're going to need to throw it. He's the number one target there. So he's definitely going to get volume. I think you play the draft really well based on volume, based on how consistently they get the ball. That was key in the draft that I saw from you.
Mhm.
Whereas maybe I played it a little bit more of a risky, taking some young wide receivers that have potential for upside. Quentin Johnson's 6'4", 230, like that's huge. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he's the prototype wide receiver. And if he, especially with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, like if one of them goes down, he could easily slide into a starting spot for the Chargers and really make an impact on their team with Justin Herbert. And I think that's their goal, is to have those two guys really grow into those roles and become competitive in it. But yeah, I think overall, man, you did really well. Did you get a rank on your draft as far as I know sometimes they send you some rankings and a letter grade or whatnot?
I have to check. I did it through a different app that I use. That gave me an A. I have to double check on ESPN, but I think it ranged from a B plus to an A. So
Nice.
I'm hoping that works out. That is funny though. I guess my strategy was a lot more volume, and I think you took some higher risks. But I mean,
Hmm.
those rewards could be there for you too. So I think it'll
Yeah.
be interesting. Um, yeah, man. Overall, it was a fun time. It got me so excited just thinking about the draft and having a good time with it. And everyone starts talking shit with each other, and it gets really good. Uh,
Yeah.
just a fun thing that happened that draft night. Jared, who's in our league as well, he
Hmm.
ended up going on auto draft towards the end, and I kid you not, rounds 10, 11, and 12, he picked up three quarterbacks. He took
He's
Tua,
stacked on quarterbacks.
Gino, and Daniel Jones. Um, so, and I didn't mention my quarterback. I ended up having to get Dak Prescott. I'm gonna pair him with CD Lamb. I had him last year. He sadly disappointed me, obviously because of his injury and just overall lack of production. I'm hoping this is his comeback year. I'm hoping he can get better targets with CD. They work together very well, and that's going to be my combo that I got. So we'll see
Yeah,
how that
yeah,
goes.
that's an interesting way to look at it as well, because I had a chance at, I want to say, Devonta Smith and Hurts, and I didn't take it. But I know there's some double stacked people out there. Joey B and Jamar Chase, Travis Kelsey, Patrick Mahomes. Like those guys are going to score well together. They already have that chemistry. So that's something to keep in mind when you are drafting. You know what I mean? You can really play to that role. And if you can do it on volume, I think that's key as well. If you want to invest and maybe take a riskier bet, invest in some of these rookies. There's all, in my opinion, year 2, 3, and year 1, 2, and 3 generally yield the most success, in my opinion.
Yeah,
For some of these guys, just because they're younger, and they have the athleticism, and they've been in the league a year or two, so I think, or they have something to prove as a rookie. So I think, that's kind of what attracted me to that. That was my mindset on it. But we'll
I
see
think
what happens,
the
man.
the lack of film too. The defenses
Yeah.
haven't fully
How do you
adjusted to some of these
prepare to
guys.
for some of these guys? Yeah.
Exactly. So it's definitely a good strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool, cool. Well, that was our drafts. Obviously, we're gonna have some more, throughout this week and into next week. Um, you know, call us and shoot us a text, or comment on some of the Instagram stuff, and let us know your thoughts and what your draft strategy is out there. Obviously we're going to have some people on the air talking through some of the teams that they got right after or before the draft. We haven't really decided yet, but we're going to have some guests showing up to the podcast, and picking their brains about their team, their fantasy football team, and their thoughts on the season and the outlook on it. I know power rankings already came out, and there's some people that are pretty surprised with those power rankings. Maybe we can break that down next week, but I think we're gonna get into the betting segment on Eli's portion, and he's gonna talk a little bit on some of the bets that he made. And I think you hit a parlay, right?
Yeah. So, I haven't bet in a while. The last bet that I hit, which I'm pretty proud of, I got the Stanley Cup winner. Right. I ended up picking the Golden
I
Knights.
remember that.
So,
Nice.
and that was off free money too, a free bet that I had. I just tossed it on them. So I ended up winning a couple hundred off that. And then I decided, so because I'm a Philadelphia fan, and I also went to San Diego State, hence the hat I'm wearing. Um, every time I have multiple sports playing on one day, I just get that itch to just throw some money on all like three or four of those teams to try to win. So that's basically what happened this past weekend. I think it was on Saturday. I had the Phillies playing, the Union, the soccer team playing, as well as San Diego State having their first football game. So I ended up throwing like $20 down on all three. I'm a little upset. I didn't pick the spreads. I just picked them straight up to win, which two of them, the Phillies and SCC, were favored. So you don't win as much money because they were already
Hmm.
favored to win. But when you parlay all that together, it was still plus 650. So I ended up winning like $130.
Nice.
So I kind of put that money, added it to my
Your fund.
current funds I have that I'm saving up for football season. So hopefully next week I'll throw in the remaining amount. I might play around with like $1,000 in my account, kind of see where I can go with that all season. It's always, fun to have a solid bankroll. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, hitting that was just the first parlay, first bet I've made in a while, and I was able to hit it. I was pretty excited. You know, all my teams got to win that day, so I'm looking forward to that. If I see those pop up again, I probably will. They don't happen too often, but obviously I'll have non Philly or non Homer bets for you guys, but this one I just want to do for myself, and it was really fun. So yeah,
Let's take a second to talk about the platforms that you use and some of the platforms, I guess, is the biggest thing. I mean, what do you use? Obviously, I know I personally have used Underdog in the past for parlays and some of the other bets, but I know Robert and Paulo and some of the other guys in our league, they use different platforms. What do you use typically though?
So I guess I'll give out some free sponsorship, even though they're not giving us any sponsors. But since in California, most of the American-based companies like DraftKings and FanDuel, um, we can't technically make bets on games and on spreads. We can only make fantasy bets. So you can really only bet on how a player is going to do, not how the team can do.
Interesting.
Um, but if you technically you're allowed to use offshore accounts. So there's some websites like MyBookie and Bovada. I usually use MyBookie though. And basically, yeah, you can legally use that and be able to play. Um, and yeah, that's kind of what I use to make my normal bets. So it's a little more.
Little workaround, a little.
Yeah, it's a workaround. It can be kind of annoying because sometimes it's easier to deal with Bitcoin and stuff. So I had to teach myself all that, and how to work around with that. But now it's working good. Now that I have it figured out, it's not too
Yeah,
bad.
you got to get
Um,
into it to get a process down, and then once you get your process, you're pretty much set.
exactly. So I mean, I voted for the ballot. I wanted the legal gambling in California already, but guess it's not happening. So I'll have to wait. But hopefully, when I go to Vegas, I can make some bets over there too. So I think that should be pretty fun. But that's pretty
Yeah,
much what I use.
definitely. Okay, gotcha. Awesome. What do we got next on the agenda?
I mean, we can kind of start rounding it out. Maybe we can talk a little about the preseason three that we watched. Did anything pop up for you? I'm sure we watched our own teams. If you want to talk about how the Steelers did, I saw they did kind of give a whooping. So
Yeah. I think what happened is I think the draft or not the draft, excuse me, the power rankings came out a day or two before, and they just saw they were in the 20s for the power rankings, and Atlanta was ranked at like 19 or 17 or something. And I think they took that personal. I really do, because they came out just guns a blazing, firing, and they whooped Atlanta, 24-0. So I had Rooney was on there, and he was talking to the guys, the broadcasters, and he was just saying, anytime a team, whether it's preseason or not, you're losing 24-0, it's tough. You know what I mean? Preseason or not, like, it's tough. So I think it was they did really well for them. Um Kenny Pickett went 4 for 4, 86 yards, so perfect, drives there. McFarland was the best running back in that case. He had 10 carries for 55 yards, 1 touchdown. And then George Pickens, he only had 1 reception, but it was for 35 yards. Great, amazing catch. I honestly think he's going to be a breakout player for the Steelers this year, and they got a good connection with him and Kenny Pickett. I think Deontay Johnson might even surprise us every once in a while throughout the season, because they're going to be trying to guard Pickens and lock him down. So yeah, they it was a really great game to see, and I think they climbed up in the power rankings there, which is ultimately what they wanted to do as we entered the season there. So, yeah, I mean, how did the Eagles do, man? Like, what was their score? Who were the standout players in that game?
You know what's funny, man? I think we this season's gonna be interesting because we are on the exact opposite sides of our fandom right now. You guys are coming back from a struggling season, young guys, really trying to prove it. Eagles, on the other hand, made it to the Super Bowl, solid team, and they didn't even have their starters out this game. So I don't really have a lot to
Interesting.
say for this one.
Yeah, yeah, that is
Um,
interesting.
I mean, on the other side, I got to see some Anthony Richardson play a bit. I think he looked pretty solid. I think the Colts made a pretty good choice with him. He was very mobile. He could sling it. He was definitely out there playing pretty well. So, but other than that, on the Eagles side, we had Mariota out for a bit, and we had McKee out for most of the game. I think they just wanted to solidify their last remaining roster spots. That was the point of that
Hmm.
game for the Eagles. But yeah, I didn't see Hurts out there. I didn't see any of our main starters at all. So
I got a question to you because I mean, for your running back, and I know a little bit about the depth that you guys have, but for the running back position with the Eagles, I mean, they have DeAndre Swift and they also have Kenneth Gainwell. Do they have another back that they rotate in that kind of rotation, or is it
yeah,
just
so
them?
Rashad Penny is also in that.
Rashad Penny, yeah, he came
Yeah,
from Seattle.
so
Gotcha.
it just I mean that in itself is a pretty strong, three-headed monster that we kind of rotate through. And then we have little Boston Scott. I mean, my idol, bro. That guy's 5'6" like me. So he's running out there. We save him specifically when we play the Giants. So it's always a good time. Shout out to Edward. Sorry that your team always gets wrecked by us, but
Yeah, you know what? I think now that I'm thinking back on it, I mean, I even drafted DeAndre Swift, and I think he's gonna be the not the catching back, but he's gonna be the running more so the running back. But now that Rashad Penny's in the mix, I think he can do just as good. You know what I mean? So to I almost think Kenneth Gainwell is the more safer bet out of all the running backs, because he's
well,
gonna be
he's
that
considered
catch back.
the sleeper for that team. Like a lot of people could see, Gainwell prominently going up, and who knows with injuries too. Penny and Swift are not. They're definitely
Yeah,
prone to injuries they've had in the past. So
that is true.
as long as they have Gainwell there, they didn't end up. They released the roster, and I think Trey Sermon didn't end up making the cut,
Mm,
which is a little bummed about. But I'm not sure if he's on the practice
the
squad. I'll have
practice
to double
squad.
check. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, I was actually quite I was actually out and about this weekend, so I didn't catch any of the other games. If any of you guys have some things that you guys want to comment on these games, feel free to shoot us a message or comment on the Instagram, or just let us know, right? We're going to be having people on, so we're going to get a lot more opinions on here than just our own teams. That's just who we happen to watch this week, but I'm going to make more of an effort to kind of watch some other teams too. I know I caught a little bit of the Carolina game. Bryce Young looked a lot better than he did the first two games. Wasn't being as pressured as much and throwing some real solid passes. I think he had a good touchdown pass to Adam Thielen, which was great to see. His first touchdown pass in the league. So that's always good, and to see some of these young players develop is always nice as well. But yeah, that kind of rounds out our preseason week 3 matchups that we kind of saw and went through. Do we have anything else on the agenda? I think we have a trivia question coming up, right,
Yeah,
Eli?
well, first, really quick before we exit out of preseason, I just want to give a shout out to Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if you guys watch Hard Knocks, but he was out there talking some shit. He was
Yeah, he was
definitely
beefing
going at it, and then he put his uh put his foot down and ended up throwing that touchdown to Garrett Wilson. So
right after, like
right
right
after they were
after.
talking smack with each other.
Yeah.
So if you guys just go up and look up the clip on YouTube or something and check it out. But Aaron Rodgers, I mean, he's known for that too. He does like to get in guys' heads and mess around with them. But it was just fun to watch. So I'd recommend checking out a little bit of Hard Knocks if you get around to it.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. I've been following Hard Knocks, releases every Tuesday. Really gives you an insight into the team, the dynamics, what they're really looking to build, and I don't know. In some cases, it could give you some insight into the week to week with them in
Yeah.
particular. Um, my whole thought process is, man, I if they did that for every team, things would be so much different because you'd really get an understanding of like their mental, where they're at, and how they're doing, how they're performing week to week, and it's just a little bit more personalized approach that you get some insight into. I can't wait until they do it with the Steelers. I'm going to be stoked for it. I'm just hoping we have the team, that year, and I think that's what the Jets are really trying to do. I think they're really trying to make a shot this year, and they got Aaron Rodgers, they got Randall Cobb. And I don't, man, side note, did you see that hit that Randall Cobb had on that guy, bro?
Yeah,
Oh my god.
he did straight smack him on the side, and it was funny because he even admitted he's like, I haven't made a hit like that in years, bro. So it's
Yeah.
he
And
just
then
forgot that he can't hit like that. So
Aaron Rodgers like, man, what are you doing? This ain't 2014.
that was good stuff. It was
Yeah, a
definitely good
little
stuff.
side note there, but yeah, I really think they're trying to build a team that can be a playoff contention team. It's gonna be hard in the AFC though. There's so many good teams in the AFC. You got the Bills, you got the Dolphins. Like there's a lot of Chiefs. Like there's a lot of good teams. So it's gonna be interesting to see playoffs and where they're at. And this part of the season, this beginning, week 1, week 2, really sets the foundation of how the year's really gonna be played out and how you battle back from some of these losses. But it's going to be interesting to watch the Jets go through that process through Hard Knocks as well. I'm definitely invested. Comes out every Tuesday. If you guys are interested, tune in. We're gonna be Me and Eli are gonna be following along to it. Talk to us about it. It's just another topic that we can talk through on air. But yeah, I think we're moving into the next portion here.
Yeah.
What's the last thing on the list here?
So we'll go into the trivia question. So thank you everyone who did answer the poll on Spotify. So the previous question was, what city did the Commanders originate from before moving to Washington, D.C.? The correct answer was Boston. The bonus answer for the name of them, they were the Boston Braves. So on the polls, I had 2 people said Boston, 3 said Washington State, and 1 said New Jersey. So congrats to the 2 said Boston. Sadly, I can't see who ended up voting. So we'll figure out a better way to do that. But anyways,
Text us if you voted Boston, and be honest here.
Yeah, let us know. Let
We'll,
us know.
yeah, we want to know who won. We want to shout them out on the air. And we'll take it from there. But what's the next question to the people?
For the next question, it's gonna be kind of an easy one. But where did Super Bowl 50 take place? So your answers are going to be Las Vegas, Phoenix, Santa Clara, or Arlington. So I'll set the poll up again, and you guys just answer the question after you listen to the podcast, and we'll announce the answer next week. We can go over that. So
Awesome. Well, tune in for that answer next week. Are we gonna be having the first interviewee on stage next week, or is that the following week, Eli?
To be determined. We
To be
will talk
determined.
to the interviewee and see what we can figure out. So we'll
Yeah.
decide that. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, we're gonna have some people on air soon, and tune in to see who answers that question right. We'll shout you out. Just give us a text, and that wraps it up for Touchdown Times. This week, we're gonna be really looking forward to wrapping up preseason next week and getting into the actual season where stuff is really starting to get down on the line. Always a pleasure. Talking with you guys and hanging out. We will catch you next week. Alo out.
Savvy Sav. Peace.
All right, there it is.